decisions that come out of this plan will directly affect that. And when you talk about imposing on private property rights, Pennsylvania is very private property rights oriented on this side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, one of the biggest outcomes from this plan will be changes to the zoning ordinance. Zoning is all about infringing on property rights. That's what it is.
Yes.
So unless we unanimously stand up and say we don't want zoning in Cecil, we want it to be a free-for-all, we are infringing on property rights. So we have to just say that, accept it, and embrace it. The question is, where do we draw the line with the zoning? We're not going to get down to drafting zoning ordinances at this point. That could be an outcome of the plan. But this plan will definitely set the stage. So we can say that person with 50 acres can only do lots of 2-acre minimum size, and they're only going to get, whatever that math is, 25 houses on there, versus doing PRDs, you can do half-acre sizes, which has a whole different character and feel and a whole different impact in the services offered. So we need to have a discussion, all of us, about what this community looks like when it's built out from a residential perspective. If we want no more residential development, then the only way to accomplish that is to make your community so unattractive that nobody wants to live here. We've already identified the community has lots of strengths and people want to live here. So are we going to think about emphasizing in this planning process the rural character, the large lots and all that stuff, and build a groundwork for later modifying the zoning so you can only do big lots? Or are we about pockets of higher density development or mixed use that promotes development in certain areas of the township? Or are we about PRDs that allow planned residential development everywhere, that could allow residential development happen on every farm out there under certain restrictions and guidelines? And those, it's uncomfortable, and we can talk about it a lot, and I'll certainly want to continue to talk about it. But at the end of the day, there are only so many options, and there are very specific decisions to be made. So let's spend a couple more minutes talking about it, and you give me your thoughts on where you see this plan guiding the community's residential development.
I'd like to say one thing about it. We were talking about the school districts, and I understand they do get a lot more kids into the school district. But several years ago, the state passed a law too, whenever you're going to do a development of 100 lots there or whatever, you have a formula that you go to, and you say, look, when you sell out these 100 lots, there's going to be so many kids that are going to be entered into the school district because of it. The schools aren't blindsided by this. They know ahead of time before it's built what's going to be there, Bill. And it's not, see, I've lived on both sides of the township now. I probably have a unique perspective. Where I used to live for 35 years got taken off of me by the turnpike. It was an older community. Now I live in a townhouse, and I see all the younger people there too. And they're paying taxes to the community too. I mean, where that townhouse is, there's sprinkler systems throughout them. We don't get many fire calls up there compared to other sections of the township. You know, so it just depends. There's pluses and minuses to all of it. And I think residential development is a way that made this township great. I think it is the way it is right now. You're saying, look, we want people to go work. Wait a second, Bill. You were saying you want people to work at Southwood, but don't live here. Go live somewhere else. No, it's not right.
Well, and that's a good point. That's another factor to consider too, because we know that there's lots of studies you can read about that as the new workers that you want to attract to your region want to live closer to where they work, if not right in the same.
In my whole South Point, you would live and work there. You could actually walk or ride your bike like these people say instead of 18,000 cars going through there. What I see is a high-end housing and all the workers commuting there. I don't consider that a community.
So is this discussion specifically located within the township? In other words, do we need to dedicate some time in the future with a map in front of us and saying, over here we're okay with large lot development, over here we want higher density development, over here? Or can we say, if you take a snapshot right now, we're good, except for if you want to do residential development on the farms, we're going to do 1 acre lots and that's it, and sand mounds.
My thought on it is, you know, and I was kind of thinking about this whenever I was talking about strengths and saying that, you know, accessibility, location, you know, South Point being where it is in the township, accessibility to the city and other resources around, even development up by the airport, which we are close by, and we're going to be even more accessible to once that turnpike is built. I think at the end of the day, you know, we're in this mix between, you know, transition from a rural mining farming community into what we're going to be. I think at the end of the day, whether any of us want it to be or not, 20 years from now, this is going to be a bedroom community, you're gonna have South Point, but the farms are gonna be gone. And I don't think,
They are gone.
for the most part, they are.
Elizabeth, that's what I wanted to ask you. I know you have a farm and everything. How many farms are left in the township?
Maybe 2.
You're working.
Bednar's,
Yeah.
Bednar's is a working farm?
Brendan?
And Bednar's farm is a working farm?
Yeah, I don't think they have much acreage, though, do they? I'm not
There's not many farms left as a working
But
farm.
when I say farms, I'm not saying a working farm, I'm saying the farm, the large farmland, large lots.
Is there any farmlands in Cecil Township that is in the farmland preservation?
Yeah, they
There are
have
a lot
almost 10 acres and more. Patty's a farm, 10 acres or more is considered farmland.
Well, that's cool, and also that makes you eligible for
And
clean
that's on-
green.
And clean green is a state law to keep Pennsylvania green. It was never for agricultural, it was some of the right
gone.
minds
The
thought
range
if
is
you
gone.
have 10 acres of ground and you keep it green or farmed or whatever, then it does what he was saying, controlling space. And it also controls growth because some things, many properties aren't parking unless you have 5 acres, 10 acres. I mean, there's an automatic state law that's holding us back because we don't have utilities in a lot of places. Just like you, now how did you park? Was it how many acres?
We did not not all of our property perked.
Okay.
I'm so close to my parents' house because that's where I perked. Right.
So that's what I'm saying, so.
But the
it's-
water line
we're
ends at
already
me. Like
controlled.
the water line in North DePauli ends at me because we ran it and we paid to
You
run
paid.
it there.
So that's what some
Yeah.
people.
So
couldn't
I
do.
paid it. I paid to run it there.
That's what you want to
most-
look at. You want to look at your corridors and how far they have growth and where there is none. And there's only growth so far up, and then there is none.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think,
why
But
we
you're
should
gonna get the
split into
developers
them.
are what's going to bring the
They
infrastructure.
will.
If you're not, if you don't have residential developments, you're not gonna get sewage in
Just
those
like
areas.
the Connell Farm, they have to live.
So let's talk
So
about,
it's not a matter
let's-
of
okay.
good point. I'm sorry, I get long-winded, so I'll be quick. My point is that we're not gonna stop the development, but I think what we need to do is control, make it controlled, make it slow, make sure that we are,
You grow with it.
make sure that our infrastructure grows with it, make sure, like orderly PRDs, I know I mentioned that. I don't like how PRDs allow them to continue to shrink lot sizes, but I do like how it allows us as a township to require them to make off-site improvements. So we can so they want to put, hey, you want to put that housing plan on McConnell? Great, you're going to make improvements
And we
to,
want to park based on it.
Sure.
Other
You have to be
communities
legal with
that,
them.
Sure.
I mean, you have to be sure you can require them legal. Like they can come and say, well, this guy can do it, I'm not like it.
right, so we talk about the development as a factor, as was said. If you want infrastructure to be put in and you want developers to build it, you want to make that decision as a community in terms of where that development happens and where the infrastructure goes, rather than tail wagging the dog and the developer coming in and saying, okay, I'll build you a water line, but I'm going to put it cross country so nobody else can access it except for my plan.
can I ask
So-
another
Another
reason why
question?
we have all these sewage plants segregated instead of one
And we
or
can
two.
never have an
Right.
empty sandwich.
Can I ask another question now, kind of relative to this whole thing too? I don't know if ours is the largest townhouse community in Cecil or not, but we have 380. Bill, from your perspective, do you feel that many homes in that small of an area has a much larger effect on you as a volunteer fire department, or do you feel it doesn't change your statistics that much as far as answering calls?
I mean, it's a lot of probability, more people, more houses, more people, you're gonna have more calls and more incidents. It's that simple, on the roads, on the highways, and in the kitchen fires.
But you also have the fire hydrants and the services versus other people don't have them. So
Infrastructure that's not there to support it, yeah.
Like the
You
house
have
that
the
was
ones that
recently
have the
lost.
most.
Like the house that was recently lost back behind it, which, if that fire happened a year from now, likely that house gets saved because it would have been a fire hydrant right at the end of the driveway.
But Bill's lucky, his area, you guys worked hard to get every how many feet, I remember the plan, they pushed the fire hydrants over there. They were on the, on the push. don't have it.
Well, when we moved in about 12 or 13 years ago, I was really surprised to find out the sewer situation in the township. And we spent almost $250,000 just to build our own package treatment plant, okay? It turned out to be twice as expensive as they told us when we started, okay? So just be warned that to do something like that for anything more than perfect. And I have a sand mound in my house too. Well, I also own a house on School Hill Road as well, that my son lives in. And I don't know where that sewer line goes there, but from where I live at Venetia, there's a sand mound there and it works fine, but you can't do that in places like Lawrence or Hendersonville. And I'm shocked to hear there are still open pipes, apparently. I haven't actually seen it, but dumping right into Chartiers Creek, right into tributaries. Yeah, the little runs here and there. So, I mean, probably all across the township, but so some places perks are fine, and they're appropriate for farm, undeveloped areas. But there's still enough, towns and villages around this township here that I think, aren't we building some more facilities, treatment facilities?
Right, because the
Wastewater.
villages don't have enough ground for sand mounds and things. They
Right,
have little
right.
lots of them.
I think we need to clean up what we
But
already
you
have in
need
the
money to
township.
do that, and the only way you can
It
get
costs
money
a lot
is
of
to
money, so it's a big problem.
developers
It's an
and
expensive
development.
problem.
But you can't.
25 years to solve.
So I think we've narrowed it down. On one side, we're not all in for only 5-acre minimum lot size, and we're not all in for huge high-rise apartment buildings, but somewhere in between there's going to be a sweet spot that we're going to hit. So we need to keep thinking about this. We need to think about the land is a finite resource. This will have a direct effect on the township's financial and infrastructure resources down the line. And there are development impacts and all kinds of impacts to these decisions in terms of how development occurs. So I think we leave residential development on both sides, the threat and the strength or opportunity, whichever it was, positive and negative, and continue to have this discussion because it will be a key component of plan.
Can I add real quick, one weakness? Spot zoning?
We did talk about that. I thought that was.
Poor zone.
Poor zone.
Okay, great.
Okay. In front of you, there is a stack of maps. We're going to move on to the item number 2, the map review. So I need one person sitting near each stack of maps to be Vanna White. And what we're going to do is briefly go through the maps to give you a sense of the background information that we're collecting. And what we're going to do is I'm going to mail you out, email you copies of these. They don't work at 11 by 17, but if I email it to you, you can zoom in on your computer. So we're going to walk through these. I'll give you a sense of the data that we're collecting. You guys are a great resource for data collection. So if you have any changes, revisions, these 3 copies, if you want to take a hard copy home with you, feel free to do so, mark it up and bring it back. Like I said, I will email you digital versions and you can email me comments or changes. On the top is just an aerial map to give you a sense of land development patterns. You can obviously see that there's a lot of open space available. It starts to show you lot sizes and small lot size clusters in the various neighborhoods in the community.